Madhouse Podcasting Network.
All right.
Let's do this.
Let's do this. Bullshit. What's up, guys? Episode 6. Today we are talking about sliding. This is going to be a two-parter. And the first part will be about Scott and I. We will be talking about our sliding history, which, for this old man over here, that way.
Scott, one over your shoulder.
For Scott. For this old
other
man.
Side, you have to point this way. See, I'm like this. This is pointing towards you. You're supposed to be going like that.
I know. This old. Well, for you, it's pointing the opposite way. But
reverse it.
For everybody else, it's
pointing. No, point the other direction. Now you're pointing at me.
For you, but for the audience, I'm pointing at you this way.
Actually, no.
Yeah, I am.
For the audience, it looks like you're pointing away from me.
No, fool. I know what I'm recording, bitch. That's because I switch it.
Gotcha.
Anyways, all right, we're going to start over because I need all that shit in there.
Okay.
That's you.
You should just let me do the introductions, dude. You screw them up every time.
So here we are, episode 6. And, work is blowing me up. Episode 6, guys.
Of Behind the Mask.
Of Behind the Mask. And actually, this is going to be a fun episode, I think. This episode, so part 6.
Start over.
Fuck me.
Jesus Christ,
dude. Okay, start over.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay.
Okay. Third time's a charm. If not, I'm going to do it. Fucking guy.
All right. Oh, man. All right, guys. So, welcome back to episode 6 of Behind the Mask. This episode's going to be part 1 of 2. We will be talking about sliding and the fun stuff. I think this is the episode that we've been waiting for. And
well, let's be real. It's all fun. That's why we do this nonsense.
Of course. But I was super excited about talking about this episode because who doesn't like talking about sliding and who doesn't like sliding? So,
there's people out there that don't like it, but that's okay.
That's because they can't do it.
There's a lot of people that like it.
So this first part, we're going to talk about Scott and I, our history, as we've been talking about for the last 5 episodes, or 4 episodes technically. We will do a part 1, and then part 2 will be sliding, but it will be a general conversation about sliding. So we'll go over the history of sliding, go over all and any possible equipment that you could use, and it'll be an overall education on sliding. So that one will be extremely fun, extremely informative. So without further,
that is the hope.
Yeah, hopefully. So it'll be different. It'll be a list of things. So without further ado, let's get into it. Well, I guess we could start with you, dude, since you were sliding longer, a year longer than I. I mean, technically more because you go out more than I do within the last 12 years. But
yeah, but you're saying start time, dude. I started before I even started working knots, though.
Did you? Well, you did. You did when
yeah.
you were doing your home thing.
Yeah, that's when I started. Well, I didn't actually do sliding for our front yard haunt. I just did it in my garage to give it a try, and that was entertaining. I had a shitty pair of skate pads with crappy plastic recaps, and I was actually surprised I slid on them, but I actually slid in my parents' garage from one end to the other, and at that time I didn't know how to stop, so basically I hit the ground and slid and wham, right into the garage door. That's how I stopped. So needless to say, I figured out a way to stop pretty quick.
Hang on a
second. Then from there...
Sorry.
Headset.
Yeah, because I don't know if... I don't know if I'm making echo. I doubt it, but anyways, I'm sorry. Sorry.
So
viewers.
should we start over?
No. Just continue.
Okay.
Yeah, just continue.
Yeah. So from there, I figured out to stop real quick, and then I got a job at Knott's in 1990, which was 2 years later. So I turned 18. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna go and give this a try. But that first year, I didn't slide because I was put in a ride. So I think one of the other episodes, since we've talked about it so much, it's been mentioned. So pardon the regurgitation of some of the information for you viewers.
Yeah, we'll probably repeat mostly.
Yeah, we're gonna end up repeating.
And if you're watching this for the first time and you want to go into and you want to hear the in-depth story of our monster career, then you can go back to previous episodes. But
yeah,
this one we're gonna end up repeating a few things.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so I didn't actually get to slide at Knott's until the what year was it? 91 or 92? I don't remember exactly for sure what year it was, but at the time I had a supervisor that said, "Hey, I know you slide, so I want you to be in this position here. It's the biggest area, and you can utilize what you got in here." I said, "Okay, I'll give it a try." Initially, he allowed me to go out front and work the main entrance and the midway out there over in Fiesta Village, where Studio K used to be, where now Jaguar is. All that used to be open, and it was super, super fast ground, so I got to slide there all the time.
Nice.
Yeah, so he let me go out there at times too. And I actually worked with that same supervisor from then all the way up through 95 and every attraction that we worked, which is only 2 because the first one I stayed with him for the duration of that venue. And then when he moved to the next venue, which was Auto Race, I worked in there too, and he put me at the exit there. Again, working the queue line, the exit. Auto Race, there's like a guided track basically, and there's a super fast area there. So I got to work there and right outside the exit gate as well.
Nice.
And that was up until 95. But let's kind of stop there because my transition goes to the next stage of being a monster. So let's get you in there and kind of get you up to speed from where you started first, and then we can kind of go back and forth. So people aren't going, "Oh wait, when did he start? When did he start?" We can kind of staircase it.
We can do that. I started sliding my first year on streets, Ghost Town. And I had no idea what sliding was. Even when I went as a guest, I really didn't pay too much attention to sliders. I didn't want to start in the beginning of my street year. Because a lot of people were sliding, and I just, my partner and I at the time were just like, let's just go do something else. And then so we started sliding a weekend after, I believe, or something like that. And it was fun. I mean, it was addicting, and obviously.
And that was in your first year, 97.
97. Yeah, I was in a maze.
Oh, you're ahead of me now. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, which is fine. 97. So yeah, and the only time I slid was at Haunt at my first year.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go practice, and I don't know why, but
opening night, first slide, boom, that was it.
Well, yeah, for everybody except, but that wasn't for us. Our first, we lucked out and got the gear, the proper gear, because you guys had, told us to get the proper gear, and we did. So felt, crazy about it, like the first time I did it.
Yeah, initially you didn't, but then once you kind of got into a groove, it was.
Well, it wasn't that I didn't.
Back.
It wasn't that. It wasn't that I didn't like it or I didn't fall in love with it. with it. It was just trying to figure out my style and trying
Yeah.
to figure out. But you know, I got the hang of it pretty quickly. I was super athletic back then, so you know, doing it wasn't a problem. You know, and plus I learned by watching all you idiots. So
Yeah, exactly. See, for me, it was polar opposite, because after 95, 96, I came on streets, and you know, I had already been sliding for a few years at that point. So once I got there and going to Ghost Town, and back then the ground was super fast,
right.
you know, so it was, and everywhere was that way, you know, quick.
Oh yeah.
So going out there, I was like, oh my God, this is Slider Haven, you know, because there's a lot of open space. You can hit long slides, short slides, you know, slow, fast, all that stuff. That's about the time too when I started trying to look at new opportunities to make different equipment that's going to be more functional. In 95, I needed something to protect my toes better than what I had prior. My first pair of sliding shoes ever were wrestling shoes. First it was some kind of shitty aluminum that didn't last very long. And then I'm just like, screw it, I'm just going to use tape. And then in 95, I got boots and initially used plastic, but that didn't hold up, nor did the glue. And then I switched over. That's when I first brought into effect the steel toes on the outside.
Right.
Still didn't have the right glue yet. I was still using hot glue, and it would hold and dry quickly. But the first or second time you hit the ground, steel toes were popping off because just the glue wasn't strong enough and it wasn't pliable enough. It would turn really, really brittle. So I hit the ground and, you know, all of a sudden, cling, 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 you know, steel toes come off.
Yeah, same thing with the gloves too. I remember whenever we'd have pieces fall off, run back to Warehouse P and stick some hot glue and just so we could survive the night, and they fall over. The embarrassing part is when a guest is picking up your pieces and handing them to you.
Yeah.
That's
always a good time.
But it's always a good story, you know. Hey, you dropped this. Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah,
now
exactly.
Now I gotta go to Warehouse P and fix up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's happened many, many, many times.
Yeah. So that's about the time I discovered E6000 too.
Yeah.
You know, all these things too, people started asking, so I told them, you know, I found E6000 at all places, a craft store. You know, it read on the tube industrial strength. The only problem was that for it to fully cure, it took over 2 days.
Yeah.
But you could let it sit for 12 hours and be okay. And the other problem was, if you glued it in one spot and it was thick, you had to lay it in a position to where it stayed in that spot, because it's self-leveling. So it would run down to the lowest part of wherever you were gluing. So that sucked.
Yeah.
You know, but hindsight, that all worked, and everybody and their mother use it today. That or household goop is another one that works really good.
Yeah.
So, then in 96, go ahead.
I was going to say ABS glue, right? Does not work pretty well too.
That's the ABS glue is a plastic replacement. Like if you get an abrasion on your pants or your pads, you brush that a few times, a few layers over that, but that dries in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, because I used ABS because I didn't have an E6000, and it was during a haunt weekend run, and I had to fix my pad, and I had ABS obviously because a little goes a long way.
Yeah, that stuff smells horrible though.
Oh, it's terrible. But I used it to hold my pad on, and it held it pretty well.
But again, that's not an adhesive like E6000.
Yeah,
it's a replacement for like a plastic portion, or like if you wear through fabric on your pads. Just so you viewers understand the difference, that was a good way for if you get a wear spot on your pad. If it's before it goes through, you put a couple of coats on there, let it dry, and it turns into a layer of plastic.
Yeah, I only use it as an emergency situation, and it held pretty well.
Yeah,
I wouldn't use it as a replacement for E6000.
Yeah, hell no.
Or the goop.
Two totally different applications.
Yeah. But, you know, when you're desperate, you're desperate. You know, that's the reason why they had hot glue in the Warehouse P.
Yeah.
And that held on a lot of stuff. Well, at least
Yeah,
it attempted to.
Yeah. So, all that stuff. And then going into 96, running around like that. And that's at that time, I already had my boots figured out. Steel toes glued to the outside. Boom.
Nice.
So at that time, all the other older farts were like, dude, what is that? What is the metal on the toe of your shoe? And I told them, hey, it's a pair of steel toes out of an old work boot from my dad. They're like, what? I said, yeah. I go, I ripped them out of my dad's boots, cleaned them up real good, and I glued them on. And like, well, what are you using to glue it on? And I told them. So, and that stuff that stuff will usually, like 99.9% of the time, will hold until the steel toe or the shoe completely blows apart.
Right.
And that's why that stuff is that's like gold when it comes to sliders.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember when you first told me about that, and I just went and bought the boot, and I just used the boot. I cut the fabric out around the steel toe, and I was like, I'm not gonna take this thing out. Screw it. Bad idea.
It'll hold for a little while, but eventually that steel toe breaks loose.
It did break loose, but it was a pain to slide in those boots. It was so hard. So yeah.
It's very strange when you think about it. Yeah. Like you got a steel toe that you just cut the leather off, and you slide with it. It's already encompassed in the boot. Mm-hmm. But the difference between that and gluing it to the outside of a boot is night and day. Oh, the feel is totally different.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah, it was. I remember when I was trying. I do not remember for the life of me what the first pair of shoes I wore. But then the second pair I know for sure were the boots, and I
remember the first pair of boots you wore. They were non-steel toe, and I told you you're gonna burn through those when you slide.
That's right. That's right. And then I ended up having to put duct tape, and then obviously I learned, and then that was the steel toe boots. And I bought the boots, and I ran with the boots for a little bit. It was super uncomfortable. And then I did do the glue thing, and that's when I went to tennis shoes, running shoes. And that was pretty much my style for the whole.
Yeah, running shoes and skate shoes.
Yeah.
And I know skate shoes because I gave you a 30-gallon bag of old tennis shoes I had. You were using them for that.
I don't know if I used them for sliding because I made sure that they were all black shoes.
Yeah.
And if they weren't, I painted obviously the stitching or the white parts.
Right.
Yeah. No white.
Yeah.
No white.
Yeah, no white. Everything black.
Yeah.
So now we're up at what 97. So now we're kind of on the same page here on where we're talking. Right.
So instead of without we'll go through the timeline. I guess it's not but
loosely stated timeline.
So I mean, because it's all gonna be the same. So what were the first pair of gloves you used? What was the style glove that you used?
For me, it was a full leather contractor's glove, construction glove, not like those ones you see, like the garden gloves that are suede.
Yeah.
I actually got a full leather one. Why? Because for me, it was a better gluing surface. And I took a combination of my own creation and what Todd Stubler had on his. Like I took his idea of the washers, and I glued those on the palms, 4 big washers, and it still allowed some for back then dexterity, super heavy gloves, but what are you going to do, And then on the fingers, I actually found this bar of flat banded steel. It's probably about 3 feet long, and I cut into 4-inch sections, put it in a vise, and I bent it around my finger like this. Yeah. So it would fit over this like that.
Right.
And then I glued the shit out of them with E6000, just like the washers.
Right.
Those things were probably 5 pounds. So you're getting a workout when you got those on all night long. They weren't the most comfortable, but the reason why I had the part that went over like this is 1, because it would protect the top of my finger. Right. 2, when the piece slid on, because I wore undergloves, it would stay in place. It wouldn't do this every time I did that.
Right.
But for the thumbs, I actually just used an old, like I'd either get some old PVC scraps, like a plumber's pipe, and cut it up, put it on here, and then I put it on a bench grinder after I did that, and just grind it down to the shape of my thumb.
Right.
And that was the quickest and easiest way to do it.
Right.
Super cumbersome gloves, but that was where I was at that point in time.
Yeah. It's so funny because you and I will probably piggyback and repeat the same thing, because everything pretty much I was switching to was either you or someone else
Yeah.
started doing or whatever.
Yeah, it was a follow up.
Yeah. So I did the same thing, with the gloves. But everybody started switching to the piping cover.
Yeah, the wire conduit.
Yeah, the wire. Yeah.
You know what though? There was some people. You remember Fink, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he made slider gloves too, but he had this copper piping that actually it was completely encapsulated, and he would slid over his finger.
Yep.
It was
I
like
remember that.
plumber's copper,
which is
so
fine.
that was great. And it worked for them.
Mm-hmm. Some people were using plumber's tape and doing the same kind of concept that you were doing with the rebar.
Yeah.
The bar.
With the banded steel. Yeah.
Yeah, except it was a little pointier.
Yeah, that was Todd.
Todd was using that.
Todd Stubler, that was what he was doing, and I wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah, and then he did a piece that wrapped around the back end to kind of
right here, so it would stay on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of that because it had a point on it, and I didn't want anything pointy. I wanted more rounded edges on it.
So what I did differently when I did my my steel ones was, instead of going all the way, and I eventually went to the U shape to wrap around my finger, but what I first wanted to do was to kind of loosen the weight of it. I just did an L basically.
Yeah. A lot of people did that too.
But the problem with that was I got stuck on my costume. I would get stuck on the cobweb constantly. I just got irritated.
The corners, huh?
Yeah, so I made a new pair of gloves that went all the way over, and just kind of solved that problem.
I mean, at the time too, that was ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
That was the next step from what Todd had.
Right.
So I mean, those are the gloves we had for, I don't know, probably 3 years, and then Todd was actually the one that found, he even said it too. He's like, oh yeah, I was in Home Depot just kind of looking around one day, and he's like, oh, I'm going to see what I can find for this. And he found the wire conduit,
right.
And he's like, oh yeah, put it back on, good to go. He's really light on his hands, so he didn't need to use really big ones, so that's where that came from. He even cut them down too, because those of you viewers that don't know, the wire conduit's got 3 tabs on it, one on the point and then 2 on the sides right here. What he did is just cut below those 2 tabs and took a pair of pliers and bent this tab off.
Right.
So, and that actually turned out to be that's how my first few sets of gloves were with the conduit. I cut them down like that to make them shorter because I didn't need anything that long. Mm-hmm. I just needed my fingertips.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But that changed the game on weight, dude.
That changed the game on a lot of things, because that's where all the tricks, that improved all of our tricks. It helped tremendously. It was like a quarter of the weight. It was amazing, especially when we switched to the BMX gloves.
Oh yeah.
With the padding. That totally changed the game. I personally had 2 pairs. I had my, depending on what scares I was going to do, or depending on my mood for the night, I would switch out my gloves. And if I was just in a very aggressive,
I'm gonna be an asshole mood.
Yeah, I would wear my heavy gloves, because those were what I called my slapping gloves.
Your slappers.
Boom! I would slap. I would do all the slaps, and those would be my best scares. Whenever I just wanted to be light and move around pretty quickly, I would switch to them. And especially, obviously, I switch them out for when we did the hanging.
Yeah, we did the show.
I would switch them out to the BMX gloves, to lighter ones. So, and I would use those for scrapes. Whenever it's scrape sliding, or when I would tap on the floor, to little love taps, what I called it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
97 to 99 there was a lot of equipment discovery and change during that time I would say just based on streets for me in general, was between 95 and 99. There was a big evolutionary change with how I ran my equipment.
Yeah. Not
even just the gloves, but what I actually wore costume wise too.
Right.
So, which is crazy, but, especially being, in the hanging too and doing the pre-show, I figured how pretty pretty quick. It's like, okay, these gloves, I got to make some changes, but I didn't figure out how to do it until a couple years later.
Yeah.
You know, and once I did change over, I was like, holy shit, this is a world of difference. You know, way difference. So, but yeah, 97 is when, you know, after being in Ghost Town for a year, I was pulled into the hanging, and that's when we got to do, you know, when we were doing the original slider show, which was all just for, to get the crowd warmed up for the hanging.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when a lot of stuff was created and introduced, not only by me, but some other guys as well, you know, which still is very prominent today.
Yes, it is.
You know? So, I mean,
and it's been great because it's been taken to such a, an intense level. I remember when we would come up with, you know, and I don't know if you were much a part of it, but I know like myself, Paul Marshman, Chris, like we were all discussing, you know, hey, we need to figure out how to get Knots to do a slider show, because clearly it was right around the time like they were, you know, we were at the tail end of doing the hanging, and you know, them taking it away, and you know, we were trying to come up with ideas of, you know, proposing a show to Knots, and it just got to a point where it's like they're not going to do anything. They, you know, just clearly just were not interested. You know. Yeah. Because
at the point, I see their view on it, but at the point was it didn't. The original slider show served the purpose of getting the crowd warmed up.
Yeah. And
when that was taken away, they no longer saw a purpose for it. Now, was there a couple years where they did it? Yeah. But it no longer served the purpose it was intended for, so it got taken away. What it would actually end up doing is causing congestion and pulling talent off the streets and putting them all in one location. So that's what they were trying to avoid.
Right. I understand the reason why they did it.
Yeah.
But, you know, years later, the guys brought it back. They brought it back in their own way. Basically, that's where Decayed Brigade, I'm presuming, you know, we'll have to talk to them about that, but I think that's where they kind of developed, where they were doing kind of their own show on the streets, you know.
No, Brigade came out a lot later.
So when did they start doing shows on the streets?
Well, when I switched over from talent to manager, in 2010 was my first year in management, and they still did a show right there in the square. And Brigade hadn't existed just yet. I think they came into fruition. Don't quote me on this, but I think maybe somewhere between 2 and 4 years later. I would say like around 3 years later, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, that Spaz would be a good person to talk to about that, because it was his idea.
Yeah.
Initially.
Yeah, and we'll reach out to him and get him on here too, because he's got a huge history as well. But you know. Yeah, so the show's so back to what I was saying. It's evolved to you know, something, you know, pretty amazing now. What they're doing, they're actually creating storylines, and you know, Decayed is for the most part, you know, as far as I know, they're the only ones really creating like a full-on show.
Yeah.
There's other slider shows. I know Dark Harbor. You were a big part of doing the Dark Harbor one. I don't know if it was a storyline show. It's more of just like what we used to do at the hanging, but more consistent when it comes to doing. There's no breaks. Like when we at the hanging, we just did whatever, and like if someone went and stood there and opened their legs, we're like, oh, okay, you want to do tunnel? Let's just do tunnel, you know. And then at some point somebody would bring the bar, and okay, we're gonna do limbo. We do limbo. It wasn't like first we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do that. It wasn't a structured thing. It was free for all. That's what made it so much fun. It was just a free for all thing. It wasn't structured. There was no stress about it of like, you know, whatever. Oh, we gotta get all this done in this time. I can imagine for Decayed, it's a little bit of a stressful.
Oh yeah,
still fun, but I can imagine
they trained for months, just like we did at Dark Harbor.
Right, I can imagine it's more stressful than fun, but I'm sure they have a blast doing it.
Here's the thing too, like back when you and I were doing the first when we're doing the first slider shows, we didn't have to worry about safety.
Right.
Nowadays the timing has to be spot on for safety because because the bar has been raised, the safety level has to be increased too.
Right.
So like the last the 2 years that I was at Dark Harbor, 2018, 2019, both of those shows were storyline based. Mm-hmm. But the way it worked is here's a storyline, and these are the slides we're going to put into every sequence to match that, to make it look kind of like it's flowing, and then there would be breaks to level off, and then boom, get a punch at the end, type of thing. So yeah, there is a storyline to it, but for Dark Harbor, it was only on the grounds, like Decay Brigade does shows at Midsummer, stuff like that. And,
yeah, they're kind of
which is really cool.
Show. Yeah, I mean, what they did one at one of the fairgrounds, which is pretty
County
awesome.
Fair at I think it was in Bishop. Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah,
they're spreading out. So I'm looking forward to seeing them this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know where the booth is. I asked one of the guys, I go, "Where's the booth for?" And he's like, "I have no idea."
That's so funny. I say this weekend. We're in August, and Spirit Awakens is this weekend. This is you're probably watching this in freaking November. So so forgive me on that one, but I always look forward to seeing those guys because it's like a reunion for me. I don't see them as often. So what? And again, we've all the two of us have gone through. We pretty much repeated. We have the same.
Well, here's a little tidbit that you might not even know. So I can't recall what year this was. Probably early 2000s. You remember Jason Berglund, aka Bones?
Yes.
In Ghost Town. Mm-hmm. So he hits me up out of the blue one day, and he has this idea, and he's like, "But we got to practice it." We were gonna try to introduce a show, 2 knots, to put in a Good Time Theater at the time.
Yep.
And he did a scale model and everything, but he's like, "Hey, before I do all this stuff, we got to practice it." So he built a takeoff ramp and a landing ramp.
Yeah, I knew about this.
So you knew about the spring-loaded landing ramp and all that. You know about the truck. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I forgot if I couldn't remember if I told you that.
Tell the story.
No, I'm going to.
Yeah.
So he calls me, his friend Jim, and Merrill Ferret.
Okay.
It was just us, and we were in the back of this abandoned department store in the truck loading bay off to the side, and he had this ramp, and it was kind of great too because he built a runway on it with plastic sheeting, so it was fast.
Nice. And
the landing ramp was like this. So it's like this, and he had a board like this, and then another one on top of it. So it's like this, and he had 2 lag bolts with coils on it, so when you landed, it would give.
Oh, that's nice.
So we're hitting this, and we're doing crazy stuff on it. We tried to do 360s, we couldn't. We got out 180s.
Right.
That took a minute because every time we land, even with the shock absorption, we get close to smashing our face, right?
Oh.
So about an hour and a half in, I'm looking at the gap. The gap was probably about, 6-8 feet. And I'm looking at the gap, and I'm looking at his truck, and he's like, "What?" I said, "Dude, back your truck up in there." He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Put your truck in the gap." He's like, "What?" I said, "Just do it." So he backed in, and he's like, "You gonna try to jump it?" I said, "Why not? I'll be the guinea pig." And I'm thinking, okay, it's gonna be kind of tough, right? And I go back and I start running, hit the ground. And I had so much speed when I hit, I actually elevated above the roof line of the truck because I jumped over the bed of the truck.
Right.
I elevated over the roof line of the truck where I was looking down at it. I was probably about 2 or 3 feet above the roof line.
Oh, wow.
And I landed on their side. And I look at him, he's looking at me, and I'm like, fuck, dude, that was easier than I thought.
Wow.
So that was the first time we actually had... nobody knows about this either, so chances there's going to be people out there that don't believe it, and that's okay, but it is fact.
Right.
That's something we kept it under wraps because we wanted to actually put that into a show presentation. So there has been something at that level where we jumped a truck. I think I probably could have jumped a full size.
Well, there you go.
A full size truck. It was a Nissan hardbody.
Nice. Well, there you go, people. Go jump
Yeah.
trucks.
Yeah.
Go make some springboard ramps and go jump trucks.
Yeah.
Take it to another level.
Do not try this at home.
Do
This was done
it
by
all.
a professional.
Do it all.
Just a disclaimer, you guys.
Yeah. We're not responsible for your craziness.
Yeah. Good thing I don't have clips of it.
Yeah, it's funny because Paul Marshman, myself, and I can't remember who. I know Chris was probably a part of this, and if we ever talk with him, he can confirm it. But a few of us. Oh
boy!
Do you know about the audition?
Which one?
The for the TV show, the talent TV show.
No.
You know about that?
You, Marshman, and Chris.
Me, Marshman, Chris, and I for somebody else. And if you're watching and you were a part of
what
this,
TV show? America's Bloopers and Practical Jokes.
Yeah. It comes from the one that's just talking about jumping a truck. You dickhead.
Yeah.
It was like an America's Got Talent. I can't remember which show it was.
Oh, okay, that type of show. Gotcha.
Yeah, and it was super. We drove out to somewhere, and I can't remember like the details of it, but we actually auditioned for this TV show. It was kind of cheeseball, but it was fun. We slid. We didn't really have anything choreographed. We just went and slid, and we're like, hey, we want to do this on the show. We never got called for it, obviously, but
you do what you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was fun.
Well, that sounded like it'd be cool. I mean, I would do something like that too, just because.
Yeah, it was good times.
Yeah, I mean,
that was at the peak of hours. Well, at least my sliding for sure.
Well, I mean, the evolution of it was the biggest part. I mean, as you know, like when you're out there on slow nights at Hunt, you try to do new things that maybe figure out a new type of scare or to entertain, anything like that.
So you weren't much of a trickster, were you?
Oh yes, I was.
Like
it's like
tricks?
I created jumping. I created the manual, which is what they call now no hands, no knee, no feet, just your knees. I was the first one to spin, but everybody does that now. Mm-hmm. There's things like that.
Right.
And also the other one was no knees, just hands and feet.
Yeah.
So, but what you and I created together? Sideways jumping.
Yeah.
One person sliding going like this, and the other person jumping over him sideways. Yeah.
Yeah, you and I created that.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I was the first one to do spin jumping over.
You were the first one to actually jump over someone backwards, feet first,
and jumping backwards, feet first.
Yeah, and that's on tape. That's on Season of Screams.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I was one of the first people. Oh, actually, I was the first one, I believe, to do the slide back handspring. But Aaron was the first one to do a slide backflip.
Aaron Mendez?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. When he came on streets, he did a backflip. I believe it was Aaron. Yeah. So we tried to add gymnastics elements into it.
Yeah.
And it probably would have gone farther, super far.
Yeah.
If at least for me personally, I would have taken it a lot farther if I didn't fuck my knee up in gymnastics.
Yeah.
That's where my sliding just kind of went downhill at that point. Yeah. I mean, you can even remember the story of me.
I remember the night where I'm walking back on break and I see an ambulance back at Warehouse P and you getting loaded up on a gurney. I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, the story starts before that, where
you got hurt on streets.
It wasn't that. Dude, oh my fucking god, this story, I swear, it's so funny and so stupid. It really is. So I damaged my knee. 2000.
Around there, yeah.
2001. Let me see. Yeah, it was in 2001. I damaged my knee in 2001. The only reason why I know that is because of 9/11. Because I had my surgery and then I was stuck. Actually, no, I got injured and then I ended up being stuck at home watching that terrible.
Yeah.
And I had surgery, and it was fine. I believe it was a couple of years later. We're out in the front at the main gate, and it's me and dudes. And I know, Paul was up there, Spawn, and then a couple other people. And this little kid is running, and and I'm like stalking him, and he just bolted, and I'm like, oh yes, and as I step, pop, my knee popped.
That's it, done.
Same knee.
You didn't even do anything. You were stepping and it went.
I just stepped and it just popped, and I just stood there. And it was out of place, and I just stood there, and I was just like, oh my god, this is not good. And Paul came over to me in his incognito way. He's like stepping behind me, like kind of walking in circles around me. He's like, dude, you okay? I'm like, I can't move, dude. I can't move. He saw I was in pain, and he's like, okay. I gotta get to the back. I can't walk, dude. And so he and somebody else, can't remember who, literally picked me up and ran me all the way through Ghost Town, and I'm like, go this way, and they're like, no, they went through. They're just having fun. They're like, hey, we're just gonna carry you. And they ran. They're like, they're screaming, whoa.
Yeah, making a scare out of it.
It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And so I got to the back, and that's when you saw me. You're like, what the fuck? Yeah. So, and of course, go to the Knott's doctor or the doctors that they pay for. And they're like, oh, okay, just put ice on it. You're good. Fucking pieces of shit. So,
good game.
Yeah. So needless to say, it was an up and down battle when it came to my knee.
Yeah.
With sliding at that point. And even throughout the years, after Haunt, like there was one time, I was shooting, for the Coke commercial. I was out here at the graveyard around here, and I was shooting the tombstones to get photogrammetry. And I just stepped off. I stepped off of a ledge and knee popped. I'm like, and the first time it actually happened, because it didn't happen for a long time, and when something doesn't happen, you're just like, I'm good. I guess my knee's okay. The first time it happened, I was at the grocery store, and I was paying, and I walked away, and I just went to turn to go and bag my groceries, and it popped, and Val had to carry me to the car. She carried me all the way up. Like, it was just
the aftermath of sliding, people.
Oh my God. Not really.
But...
this wasn't sliding. Doesn't mean it can't happen from sliding, because I know people that have damaged their knees sliding. But this was my gymnastics practice. Stupid crap. It was just I was practicing. I was having a great night, and I went and did tumble pass, and I landed incorrectly.
Yeah.
Got overexcited, and I landed, incorrectly, and that's what happens when you start gymnastics at age 23 or 4 or whatever.
Age 55.
Yeah. So
but this right here, Jeremy, is a perfect example as to why I've done the things the way I've done through all the years that I've been a part of the business, and still sliding today. Through every single year, I've always done research and experimentation with my body physically to see what I can and can't do to push the longevity, to be able to keep going. And it's been successful. Yeah.
And that was my issue. When I went back in 2015, yes, I was out of shape. I was very out of shape. Because I was on a computer, for a long time. And so anyways, I was out of shape, but I think a big part of my sliding issues that I was having that year, or lack of sliding, was I was afraid. I was scared.
Yeah.
I was afraid and when I slid, I wouldn't pop. I wouldn't jump back up. I wouldn't stop the way I used to stop. And I didn't have the speed nor the confidence I was very cautious because at that point, I was my late 30s, I think I was. And
Yeah,
I didn't
2015.
want, I didn't want to. I was like, I'm not going to get injured just to fucking do this for 1 year. I had only planned to do it for 1 year. I'm not going to go through this trouble so I'm going to take it very cautiously. So when I slid, I got up. Sometimes I would slide and then wait till I stop and get up. I looked super old. And I felt fucking old. I really did. Ron had a couple times. He's looking at me like, "Dude, you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm just nervous, man. My fucking knee, dude." He's like, just take your time." He's like, "You want a decoy?" And we, go back and forth and decoy and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I had my moments where I would get in a groove and I'd be like, "Boom, okay, cool."
Yeah.
And I wore my brace like a couple nights. I wore my brace, and when I wore my brace, man, I was just like, "Oh, okay, I'm totally cool." And then, boom, 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 I would do my thing. But I was still like, I was super nervous because I did not want to deal with my fucking knee.
Oh yeah, no, it makes sense. It totally makes sense.
So condition, guys.
That's the thing.
Even you youngsters, man. I know
a lot of people think it's just the actual act of sliding. It's not.
No, it wasn't. Like, yes, if you're young and you're athletic, in shape, yeah, you can do it, and the chances of you getting injured unless you do a technique incorrectly are pretty slim. You're going to be sore no matter what. I don't care what kind of shape you're in.
You're going to be sore. You did 1,000 squats.
Yeah, because you use muscles that you don't use. You're moving your body in ways your body doesn't naturally move. So, conditioning is super important. And we're going to repeat this in part 2. For sure. I mean, because it's going to be a topic in part 2, because we actually have a structured topic, conversation that we're going to have. Yeah. So this is just free for all, basically.
Yeah.
About our careers.
But as things developed, I mean, it's important that we talk about when the certification part came into the picture. Wade actually wrote the guidelines for that. I'm sure he's got the booklet somewhere, because we actually used to get a booklet and a little slider card, a business card that says certified for this many years.
Yeah.
So we'd actually have to go through, a number of tests that test your quickness, on direction change, on stopping, being able to bail if somebody steps in front of you at the last minute, anything like that. Mm-hmm. So that developed, and that was when I was still talent. So I think the first test we did, and then after that, I didn't have to test anymore. They only retested at the time if somebody had an accident, collision, something like that, they'd have to retest for the next year.
Right.
So then as that went on, during the course of the years, like I was telling you, I moved into management, and Wade had already been gone at this point. So I was actually put in charge of certification for sliders park-wide. Mm-hmm. And what I did is I kind of took that test, the basis of that test, and added some more things to it to increase the intensity, because I wanted to test people's quickness. Mind you, the test was only about 20, 30 minutes before opening, on any given night. It was usually on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And I wanted to test their quickness as their body started getting a little bit more fatigued.
Yeah.
So, that was one of those things too, when I was there towards, the tail end of my career there, was I was fortunate enough to grab hold of that and take charge of that. They're just like, hey, go take the sliders that need to be tested and take care of it. Give us a list on who's passed and who didn't yet.
Right.
Before Wade left, though, I was able to run the test with him for a number of years. Him and Trish. So it was the three of us. That way, if there's somebody says yes for one person and no, the third person would make the tiebreaker.
Gotcha.
Type of thing.
Right.
So, and that's always interesting. And, from that, I've developed, more things with my company. Mm-hmm. And I go way deeper into it than just the actual certification testing sequence and the movements. There's so much more into it that's a precursor to actually sliding, per se.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. There is a lot to it. A lot of people overlook it.
Yeah.
without giving away your your trade secrets, I guess you could say. But yeah.
Well, as for like, here, I'll just tell one thing that some people, I bet that 90% of people out there don't realize, is that when you train your muscles to do a certain thing, to do one thing, specifically sliding, you have to train them the right way. Now, if you're super strong and like a power lifter, that's not the kind of muscle type you want for sliding. You need a muscle, because what happens is when you're a power lifter, you tend to get short fiber muscles.
Yeah.
You're super strong and bulky, but the fibers in the muscles are shorter, so that increases the possibility of injury when you do something like sliding. Sliding, you need actually a long fiber muscle that's more elastic.
Yeah.
So you want to, things like that, like the specific exercise that I cover when I do clinics and stuff, is that you can do them body weight. Resistance bands are a huge benefit to that, or lighter weight, higher reps with a little bit more of intensity.
Yeah.
To keep those muscles firing and get the endurance going in there.
Yeah.
Get the blood pumping. So you're still getting that strength, but they stay elastic and long fiber.
Yeah. And yoga.
Not to mention stretching is key.
Yoga's good, and stretching obviously.
Yeah.
But yoga really, well, I think it would be a really good thing to do when it comes to sliding.
Yeah. It is
the lower risk of injury. But you know, for obviously the key is technique.
Yeah.
You know, so
ton of technique. I mean, people say, "Oh yeah, I slide," but there's a way to do it where it's quote unquote done right, to where it's safe to the person sliding and to any possible guest or person they interact with. Right. Because if you don't do it right, you can really hurt somebody.
Yeah.
You know, not just yourself, but you can hurt somebody by running into them because you don't know how to get out of the way.
Right.
Or, bail out from a slide.
I mean, crowds are so unpredictable.
Exactly. It's their own entity.
I couldn't tell you how many times I've had to bail out.
Yeah. Think of it this way. It's like a flock of birds. When you see them in the sky, they're going this way. All of a sudden they change direction. That's exactly what mass crowds do during a haunt event.
Yeah. And a lot of times what it is, whether you don't know it, is you don't know who's around you, especially at Knott's. Like Knott's has so many nooks and crannies and dark spots. Then the fact that they have so many monsters, using Ghost Town as an example,
and fog.
You'll eyeball somebody, and that's what it is. Like, you eyeball somebody, and you're gonna go after that person, but that person may not see you, but they're paying attention over here to a monster that you don't see. You know? And they could be reacting to that one. So when you're going behind them on their left, and they see somebody on their right, they're going to go left right into you. So you have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
And the thing is too is, like, there's not always going to be. Sometimes there's that small window that you can't bail out. And I've said this before, but if you viewers can see my finger, that's a perfect example of what happens when just there's not enough time for you to change direction. Yeah. Or a guest actually steps a different direction than what their path is. And that's what happened. My finger got stepped on, so it blew the joint out like this. My finger went Mach 5 backwards, and my body was going Mach 3 forwards.
And that actually almost happened to me. I lucked out one time because I went down to do a scare, and they changed direction. Luckily, I had the big, thick glasses, my slapping glasses, I had
gloves.
Thank you. My slapping gloves on with the big, thick iron.
Yeah.
And they stepped on that, and it actually pulled my hand out of the glove.
You got lucky, because I was wearing my big heavy gloves.
I'm telling you, man. And that was the last time I got close to them, because that was my thing. I was always getting super close to them.
Yeah.
And they just stepped back, and I don't even think they reacted to anything. They just stepped back, and then I got up, and my glove was gone. I was like, what the hell? And then here they are handing it to me. And
I was wearing my heavy gloves at that time because it was 96.
Yeah.
But instead of my hand coming out, it ripped the steel right off the leather.
Yeah.
So, that was a fun night.
So, I mean, and I've had my fair share of accidents. I ran into people. I remember I went after a group of people that I started, like, I went down, I slapped, I got back up, and they booked it, and I was like, let's go for a chase. I went to go and chase them, and because of the direction I was going, they booked it this way and I was going this way. So I had to like quickly change. And instead of like, cause I saw them on the corner of my eye run, I'm like, oh cool, I'm gonna go chase them. So instead of like looking and going, I did this whole like, just without looking. And I went, bam, ran into guests. And they're like, oh my God, are you okay? And they're asking me if I'm okay. And I'm the dumbass that ran into them. Nowadays, it would be like, you hit me. You touched me. I'm suing this whole park. So they were like, oh my God, are you okay? And I'm like, I go, yeah, I'm okay. Are you okay? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, cool, bye.
Yeah.
And then you just fucking take off and then you continue. It's so yeah. When accidents happen.
Yeah, it does, and it's inevitable because it's something that's. Let's face it, sliding is not a normal activity.
It's not.
It just isn't.
No.
You know, there's so many people that do it all over the world, but it's not a normal activity. Mm-hmm. But one thing we totally skimmed past from early 2000s is when we got to start filming Season of Screams.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that was a really cool thing because we all got to do what we like to do, you know, and they filmed it and they actually interviewed us as well, kind of discussing like my interview is shit on that one.
I know.
You know,
they only used me like a small part, but
yeah.
I can't watch myself on that.
Yeah.
I can't.
And apparently everybody else watches me on that and they all call me, I can't remember what it was now, Eminem, because I had frosted hair.
Yeah, I see that.
You know, but no, that was really fun, you know, and that gave, first of all, haunt in general, and then the world of sliding more exposure. You know, so it started to, and at that point in time, like right about, I think about a year or so after that released, where it came out, that's when, I can't remember, I wish I could find it. That's when we came across a video of guys sliding in Japan.
Yeah.
You know, and we're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
We start this over here and people on the other side of the world are doing it now. You know, and that's pretty awesome to know that we were a part of something that's gone global, you know, per se.
Yeah, it's it's pretty amazing where it's at now.
Yeah.
And it's really in some small way it's kind of I don't want to say bittersweet, but it's a little disappointing because they had an opportunity to really do something with sliding. It was their thing. Like they do the whole thing where like, you know, you go a monster, anything you quote unquote create that they own, and it's like, well, they should have taken that. Like that's the one thing I like would have agreed on with Knots, where they really just missed the bar, is they so could have taken sliding and just made it something, but because they hated it so much, they didn't want anything to do with it. You know, we're ruining their floors. That's the reason why they repaved them. They thought that it was going to end the sliding, but so it's a little unfortunate, but it worked out because
I can't say I'm disappointed with that because if they did do that, I wouldn't have my business now.
No, I'm just saying though, like in general, it worked out for everybody. Of course, don't get me wrong, it's not something I would have wanted, but it's just more something of like, you know, the mentality that they had at the time. You know, and so it's unfortunate.
I mean, I think it's cool because like it's afforded me the opportunity to train hundreds, even thousands of people. Yeah. You know, over my years, and now I continue to do that. So my quote unquote journey in sliding in the haunt industry isn't even close to being over. Yeah. It's just gone to the next level. Yeah. You know, and
the haunt industry is not going anywhere. It's growing, and it's always going to be growing. Haunts are always going to want sliders, and not every haunt knows how to go about doing it. There's only so much you can show on YouTube, and only so much you can educate people on YouTube. It's the actual one-on-one being there, and giving them guidance and tips. Training them by someone that's been doing it for 30 years and that knows the equipment, that knows the techniques, and that knows how to condition to make sure you don't injure yourself. So you can theoretically teach people on YouTube. You can show them how to make the gloves, but
it's a hands-on trait. People need to have hands-on training, like, and that's the best part. Is like, I mean, there's all technique to it, and I like to think of myself as a technician when it comes to being able to break the actual idea of sliding down to the very basics and build people up from there. And when you do that and you see the results you're getting from people that started from nothing, never even put on a pair of pads before, to becoming, you know, top-notch guys that know exactly what they're doing, that's satisfying.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to be contracted to go fly across the country on more than one occasion to train teams for other events. Right. You know, yeah. So, and that's why I say my journey is still going, and it's now evolved into the next level.
Yeah. You know, and piggybacking on that, it's like practices. You know, I remember when I first started, we were in our early days, like, we really didn't have anywhere to practice.
Yeah.
You know,
you knew of.
Well, no, I mean, I went to my old high school.
Oh yeah, Rancho.
And that was like a hot spot for a while.
Dude, that ground was so fast.
Oh, the ground was perfect, and it was. We had fun there.
Yeah.
We did that.
I remember that. I went there a few times with you.
Yeah, we did that for a few years, and it probably still is an amazing spot. But they have the gates up now, and well, when I think the first time we ever got like kicked out, I guess you could say, or they questioned us, we kind of slowly stopped going there, and then that's when the hockey rinks, you had brought up the rinks, and we were going to different hockey rinks.
It was all polished cement at the time.
Yeah, at the time it was, yeah. And then that's where the Chapman place kind of came to
fruition. And it's funny because, dude, I've been sliding at Chapman probably since I started sliding at Knott's. You know, so right around 95, 96.
Yeah. And
it just popped in my head. I was like, this would be a cool place to slide, but I had to be careful because it was still where everybody trains now at Chapman. There's where the walls are gone. That used to actually be a hockey rink.
Yeah.
So we would go in there and slide, but I had to be careful because in there you put wax on your pads and it deposits on the ground. It screws up people's hockey wheels, and that as they turn and move, it actually rolls up the sides and starts getting in the bearings, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
So
well, now that the rink is obviously gone, it's a slider.
Yeah, there's only one rink there now.
Yeah, it's pretty dope because, like, you know, I follow people on Instagram, slider groups that I never even heard of.
Yeah.
Putting up stuff like, hey, we're gonna have open night at hockey, you know, and they post the Chapman place, and it's like, fuck, that's so dope. You know,
Scare Squad Society is an example of that.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, exactly. So I think it's pretty special that spot has become a generational training location essentially for SoCal.
Yeah.
It's like
considering we did that way back in the day, and now it's still going.
And
today
I remember,
with this current generation.
If Ted Dubordi, if you are watching this, I remember that was when I first met Ted, and that's when we started. He came in as a fan. And we were and that's a big memory for me. I don't know what we were. I think we were doing Season of Screams.
I met him just before Season of Screams. Before we started. Before
you met him,
I was told about that.
Yeah, you met him before I did, but yeah, and it was kind of cool to be a part of like his history at Haunt. It's just like you have a big history with a lot of people when it comes to training and stuff.
Because I'm old.
I have a history of training Ted, and which was super awesome. And we became really good friends. And it's pretty amazing for me to see where he's at now in the industry. Sorry, kids are like screaming.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny because I know he's part of LA Hayride, and that's where I landed for the season.
Yeah, he's like a partner of John's, so...
yeah,
it's pretty amazing to see where he's at right now.
There's no sliding at LA Hayride, by the way. People.
Which I think is great. Honestly,
well, there's
nowhere to slide.
There's nowhere to slide. There's a 20-foot slab of concrete that's not conducive.
But I still think that's awesome. Yeah. I don't think every haunt needs sliders.
It doesn't. I agree. And LA Hayride is one of those.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I feel Knott's should have regulated a little bit more when it came to the street zones.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that not every zone should have had sliders because you're just going through the same shit over and over. It's just different themes, and it's like there's no individuality when it comes to the street zones. But that's just me, my personal opinion. So I don't think sliding needs to be everywhere because it definitely gets annoying. Prime example, every fucking maze and literally every fucking monster inside Knots Now has fucking clickers, hands. They have gloves. Are you fucking
Your face,
Are you fucking kidding me? Like, dude, when that started happening, man, that was like, I remember going through, and I was working there. I remember going through, and you see monsters with gloves but no knee pads. I'm like, why are they wearing gloves? And then going through the mazes, you see, they use this slap on walls. I get it. It was when they took away the shaker cans, which I thought shaker cans were the shit. They took away the shaker cans because someone got hurt, and cried about it. Someone was like, oh, well, let's just use gloves and slap the walls.
Dude, the gloves I used when I was in mazes were those ugly brown things that you give you.
I know.
Those things you wear one time and they're totally stretched out after that.
So it's stuff like that. Like, sliding has kind of gotten to that level where it's like every monster wants to be a slider just to be a slider. And it's like, I get it. It's cool. And it is fun to do. And it's a great scare if done properly.
Yeah, which is what it was designed for.
It is.
Sliding was designed as an additional scare tactic.
Yeah, but it is not meant for every monster to have it. You now go to haunts. You go to some haunts, and they have literally every monster that walks around is a fucking slider.
Yeah.
Where are your roamers? Where are your atmospheric characters? You need that. That's what's gonna sell the theming. Have some big monsters. Have some big people. Have some people on stilts. That's the one thing, and the one and
George
only,
Case. Boy, do I miss that guy.
The one and only thing that I give Universal is they have variety on with the street characters. I can go there and just sit there and walk around their streets and be thoroughly happy with their street monsters because it's the variety. Yeah, the variety of monsters. They have sliders. They have the roamers. They have the
chainsaw gang.
Yeah, the chainsaw gang. Yeah, which I'm fine when it comes to that, but. Again, chainsaws are just like my opinion on sliding and my opinion on the gloves. Not everybody should be doing it. You shouldn't have like 10, 20 chainsaws. It gets repetitive and boring. It's like, oh, chainsaw there, oh, chainsaw there. Oh, okay, well, that was fun. Don't get me wrong, chainsaws can be a good scare tactic if done correctly.
On the flip side of that, I just realized this too as you're saying that. Like, Knots has its niche type of character, and it's a slider. Mm-hmm. HHN has their niche characters, and that's a chainsaw gang. Mm-hmm. I just realized that. Now that you mentioned that, it's like, because sliding originated from Knots. That's why that's their quote-unquote niche. Yeah. And HHN has really taken the chainsaw gang and really made that as their staple group. Yeah. Like, when the guests come in, they're right there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Well,
when I worked 2015... and they had already been doing this for a couple of years, I think. They had the 7 Deadly Sin characters. I think it was the 7 Deadly Sin, right?
That was year,
2015.
That was year 2.
Yeah, so they had the 5 characters.
It was envy, sloth, lust, wrath, gluttony.
It wasn't the 7 Deadly Sins. It was something else.
There was something else because.
Well, anyways, the point is, I loved that those characters because they were realized characters. Every single one was different. Every single one had their own niche, and for the most part, they weren't all sliders.
Yeah,
they were all atmospheric characters. They were roamers, and it was beautiful. They handed out cards of the characters, dude. That's fucking rad. Yeah, that's the one thing that is so cool about certain haunts you go to. They just have X amount of characters, and they really put those characters in the forefront. They create stories around those characters, so that way when you go in there into the haunt, they'll like before you go into the haunt, you you see a story, you read a story, you watch a video or whatever it may be, and when you go into the haunt, they have those characters. You see those characters, and you're just like, oh my god, that's so and so. He does this. Oh, let me go run and blah blah blah, and so and so and so and so and so and so. That's basically what we did with Dark Realm when we created the theme for Dark Realm. We created individual characters. So that is always like an ideal thing to do.
Yeah, they did have 7 people. I just pulled up the 7 deadly sins, and they had them all. They had pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth.
Okay, so I thought that was amazing. That was super cool. I loved that they did that. So and that just kind of and we kind of got off track of sliding, but that was the whole purpose of it was it's not for everybody, and we'll get into that on the next part 2. We'll get into the fact that what you would use sliding for, how to integrate it into your character.
Yeah,
that'll be in part 2.
Yeah,
and if you
really, one thing. Sorry, dude, I totally cut you off. One thing we totally skimmed over too was the actual beginnings of sliding, like how it started. Yeah,
but that has not. We'll do that on part 2.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
not us. This is ours.
Yeah, I forgot. Neither one of us were there yet.
And again,
as talent.
Yeah, in part 2, that's the reason. Because I was gonna ask the question for you, all the different knee pads that you had used, and again, it was a repetitive thing that you probably use the same ones.
Yeah.
I know I didn't use a certain pair, but
I used 4 different types.
Yeah, I only used 2, and we'll get into that in part 2 of the different types of knee pads. Because we're also, I just don't want to make it too repetitive, but some things are going to be kind of repetitive. So, So, anyways,
that was kind of a crash course on kind of what we went through. I mean, there's a lot of years there, and there's so many things that have happened. It's hard to remember everything.
Yeah, and I'm sure.
But the biggest thing that you can take away from it is from the first year to all the way to the end. There was a constant evolution, whether it was in athletic ability, creation of a new thing for sliding, gear, whatever. There's always some kind of evolution as it went on through the years, because we had to stay ahead of the curve.
And I remember, every year we were creating something new every single year. When Knots or the Hanging opened up the middle, and we always talk about the infamous middle
alley.
The alley.
Yeah.
We always talk about the alley. If you talk to any veteran from Ghost Town Streets that was the slider and the Hanging, the alley was the game changer. I
loved it.
That was basically our freaking show. You got to run from the tracks as in a straight line. We got to run from the tracks all the way up to the stage, and controlled environment. And all controlled, we had no worries, nothing, and it was super wide, and the line control was super on our side. Made sure
because they got a free show multiple times a night,
and it was a lot of fun. We started creating new things. It opened up the doors for us to develop new tricks.
It pushed the envelope.
Yeah, that's where I developed my spin jump. And really
revolutionized it. Yeah,
the backwards jump, and you and I did the side jump. That's when I'm
not gonna lie, dude. When we first did that, I was kind of scared.
Oh, it was
like, fuck, I'm gonna kill him.
It was totally sketchy. It was if we timed it wrong, we were fucked. And there were a couple times that you and I hit each other, but it was it wasn't that bad. But luckily, we never injured ourselves. But and there was another move that I forgot that I had done based off of that was I did the sidewards flip, over someone's back.
Yeah.
So that was the best, man. Like, if anybody asks me what were the best years, it was those years. And when I don't remember the year that they started that.
They opened that alleyway in '97. I remember that because I had to be this big ass fucking puppet thing that was my first year.
No, it wasn't my first year, dude. We did the front a couple.
No, it was. That's fact. because I was the alien and I had to wear this big puppet thing that Tom Clough put in
But
the
we
show.
didn't get to slide. That's my point. When we were able to slide.
Yeah, it was that year.
Trust me, it was not. My first year was
Think it was
97.
year? You think it was year two?
It was either 90. It had to be 98 or 99.
Well,
because
your first year was 97. You never came into the corral because
yes,
at that time
I have video footage of me in the corral, bro.
But not 97 because they made it so strict on us that we couldn't bring in any outside talent.
No. I know. That's why I'm saying it happened later. The alleyway happened later because I have footage of us as the Bone Brothers. That was our second year.
Yeah, so that was 98, but the alley opened up before that.
Which alleyway are you talking about, bro?
The one that goes from the front of the stage all the way back
to the tracks.
To the sound booth. Yeah, because I had to get staged back there by the sound booth because that character I'd have to put on a belt and on my shoulders. It had this big head and these big hands like this, and I had to walk in with a trailer and entertain the crowd. I'm like, fuck, Tom, do we really have to have this thing?
All right. Well, someone's gonna have to verify that.
I got stuck with it because I was the new guy.
I know, but I don't. I'm pretty 100. I'm 100% sure it did not open for a couple of years. As far as me being in a part of the hanging.
Yeah.
When my second year, which was 98, that was my first year officially being a part of the sliding in the front. Being allowed in, let's put it that way. And we have, I know we have 2 years at least of that.
That's when you guys were doing
the first one we just did.
The twist too, the B twist.
Well,
I remember that. I saw footage of that.
Yeah, but that was my second year.
Yeah.
Inside there.
Yeah.
So the first year was just us kind of goofing off, and the second year that's when we did the fight. That's when we, because I remember like Chris and I were like, next year, like we have to create a fight based off of the skit. And we practiced it all off season for the most part. Until he hit me in the eye and,
and they're like, okay, we're done.
Yeah. And so anyways, so it had to have been 99 or 2000 that they actually officially opened it up. I mean, they may have done it for you at some point, but it wasn't open for us to actually slide for the 15 minutes or 20 minutes that we were out there, So I don't know. We'll have to get that verified. If anybody knows, comment or text Scott and tell him he's a fucking idiot, because I'm telling you right now. But anyways, but those.
So we went totally off tangent on that.
But that's okay. Those were my best years for sure. Because that was fun. Every time I watch those videos, I'm just like, fuck, I miss that.
Yeah, good stuff.
And plus, I was Ghost Rider. That was my first year as Ghost Rider, I believe, because I was Ghost Rider when we were doing that. Or Rider.
No, you were lucky when you started.
No, I was, because that's the
dude. You just need to let me worry about the timeline because I know it.
No, you don't know it. That yes, part I know. When it comes to opening up that fucking alleyway, bro. Trust me, you're old too, dude. Oh god, that's good times. Anyways, all right. Well, I think we can kind of end it because.
Yeah, enough of our babbling on that. I think people are gonna go, you guys are fucking idiots.
I think at this point we're kind of just like getting so sidetracked on other stuff. And,
yeah. Feel free to say you guys are idiots in the comments too. That's okay, but just make sure you click the subscribe button.
Yeah. The bottom line is, we don't care. We do not care because we're entertaining ourselves mostly, and you guys like this, then cool.
Yeah.
Like we talk about this shit all the time, not in detail like this. I mean, because this is actually more fun. But anyways. Okay, guys, we're gonna end part 1 here. So stay tuned for part 2, where we will actually get into depth about anything sliding, and we are gonna go into history. We're gonna go into evolution. We'll get into tricks. We'll get into scare tactics. All of it, guys. So be prepared because that's gonna be a fun one.
Yep.
So all right, guys. So
and make sure you guys go to our our Instagrams and give us a follow. I can't see my fingers. One here, one up here like this, one below me, one over here above him.
Yeah, it's on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe, and share with everybody, or just don't, and hoard it for yourself. All right, guys.
If you think we're boring, tell us we're boring.
Yeah, please tell us, because we will ignore it and be more boring.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, guys. See you in the next episode. Peace out.